there. Today I had this insight that I wanted to kind of explore deeper, and that is the idea that we all have a self. You have a self. You also have your higher self, and you also have a higher mind or source connection. We all have a connection to our higher self and our higher mind, but our higher self is directly linked to the source. Sometimes what happens is that when we are looking for connection to our higher self, what is our higher self? It's your inner guidance. It's your inner mind, heart, soul that speaks to you for what is the right thing for you to do in that moment. That is the most authentic expression of yourself in the connection to the source and the higher mind. Simply put, your higher self is your most true authentic self that has a connection to the source through your heart. That is your heart, it's your guide. So essentially, it's just your guide. So we all have this connection within ourselves to our higher selves because essentially you and your higher self are the same thing. Essentially, you are your higher self if you are able to remove all of those subconscious blocks. Now, sometimes what happens is that we are looking for this connection to our higher self, but we are unable to get that because we have all this chatter inside of our brain that doesn't actually belong to us. We have all of these beliefs that actually cloud our judgment and cloud our heart, and it sabotages our direct connection to our higher self. So what happens is, if we introduce a second human, me, or just a human too, because we're all humans, so what happens is that what we can do is, instead of having direct access to our higher self, what happens is that when we meet with someone else, if the two people are actually in tune. What do I mean by in tune? What I mean by in tune is that you may not have access to your own higher self, but we all have an access to source. You have an access to source, and I have an access to source, but we're not always aware of that. But what we are aware of is that when we are not able to see our higher self, let's just say I also have this blocked, right? Let's say we both have this blocked, and I've seen this happen, so that's actually really cool. What happens is that if we both have this blocked, we have connection to the source. So what happens is that my higher self speaks to you, and your higher self speaks to me. This is the wrong color. Let me fix that. Your higher self speaks to me because what happens is that this might actually seem confusing at first, but this actually is how that works because I've seen this happen. Like, we all say world is a mirror, right? We all say that we reflect to each other, each of us. So they say, you are the average of the 5 people around you, but it's more like the 5 people around you are just a reflection of you rather than you being a reflection of them. So when you and I meet, when you are in front of another person, what happens is that you speak to him. You're saying something. Where is that coming from? What makes you say things about him or about yourself? It's just a reflection, right? You're saying something, you're seeing something in me, or I am seeing something in you, right? Like, I'm seeing something in you, but in reality, it's just a reflection of myself. So what happens is that through you, I'm actually able to see, because your higher self, through this connection to source, is actually able to speak as if it was my higher self. Because my higher self and your higher self is the same thing. It's one and the same thing, because essentially there is no difference. They are all connected to source. So they all speak from the same space. My higher self and your higher self is essentially just a source connection to our higher minds, which has the same exact understanding of what we both need to hear and what we both need to know. So essentially, I could say this is actually same as source, and this is actually the same as source. So you could really say that. So what happens is that when I am with another person, if I have this connection blocked, if I'm unable to hear my higher self, I will still speak and communicate to him. But what he will tell me will be because my higher self spoke to him, and through him it communicated to me. So basically, his words, connection to the source, are a reflection of my own self through my higher self. And likewise, when I speak something, like when you say something and I respond back to you, The words I will tell you will be a reflection of your own higher self speaking through me to you. And I've had several examples of this. For example, when I went to see a friend, we were both staying in a car together, and we were speaking of going to Connecticut. At that time, we were in Cali, and I said, I want to go to Connecticut because I want to learn. He said, no, I do not wish to go back to Connecticut because I hate it there. There's so much pain. Guess what happened? He went to Connecticut to learn, to get his stuff together, and I was like, nope, Connecticut is too much pain for me, too much drama, not going back there. So his words, what he was saying to me, let's just call him human one because it's easier for me to say this. What he was saying to me, literally, his words to me, what he was saying about the fact that he hates Connecticut was just a reflection of my own higher self, because that's actually how I felt. But I did not even know that. I was in my ego. I was like, oh, I have to learn everything. Or at least I thought I was in my ego. But me thinking I was in my ego led to actually me saying to him what his higher self felt. Because I thought I was feeling in my ego. I thought I was like, yeah, I want to go learn. But really, I was just connecting to my higher mind in that moment and speaking through myself, his higher self, understanding of what he wanted to do, which was go back and learn. That's what his higher self wanted. What my higher self wanted is to not go back to Connecticut. I had to disappear into nowhere and heal myself. That's what I had to do. I've already been learning. I always push myself to learn, and there's many examples of this too. This is not the first time this happened to me. For example, my other friend, he was speaking of starting his own podcast because that was his dream. At that time, I was thinking of starting my own business because that's what I wanted to do. Guess what happened? I ended up starting my own podcast because I didn't even know that by him saying he wants to start his own podcast, he was just tapping into my higher self because I actually wanted a podcast. I didn't even know that. So I started a podcast. I thought I wanted to have my own business, but I was just tapping into my own higher self through source, which actually did he wanted a business, so he ended up being the one to start the business. So what I was saying through my own words was just a reflection of him. I thought I wanted a business, but in reality, I was just reflecting to him what he wanted, which was to start a business. And that's what he did. He started a business, I started a podcast. So it's literally backwards. And this happens to me all the time, that I notice that not just the world is a mirror, but it's deeper than that, because yes, everything that you are is reflected back to you. Because we can look at it in the other sense too, because everything that we have is reflected back to us. We all exist on this earth. We all have a connection to source. So essentially, we are all a mirror of each other, because through a mirror principle, we get to know each other. Essentially, if you say something to me or I say something to you, we are speaking from ourselves. When you say something to me, it's coming from you. You have an idea. Let's just say something happened, right? Let's just say something happened. We're discussing the floor because at lack of better examples, we're discussing the floor. So you're going to have something to say from yourself. You're going to have an understanding based on your system, and you're going to communicate that to me. And it's going to be from you. I'm going to have an understanding from my own system, and I'm going to communicate that to you. But when we receive this communication, when you receive communication from me, and when I receive communication from you, we will interpret it based off our own selves. You will interpret what I said based off yourself, and I will interpret what you said based on me. Because I will have my own initial interpretation of things. So when you tell me something, when you say that, I think this is actually black and curvy. I think this is curvy with whatever, white squiggles in between. You're going to tell me this. I will say, it's just there, it's just a floor. So it doesn't matter what you're going to tell me, because everything I hear will be filtered through me, through my own initial understanding of the situation. There is some things that I can still get differently, and it may take time from this idea that we all have a connection and a block simultaneously to our higher selves. What that means is my ability to perceive what you are saying is as good as my own connection to my higher self, or a lack thereof. Because if I'm unable to actually see anything other than myself, what it means is what I'm seeing is a reflection of my own higher self. But if I'm unable to actually communicate to my own higher self directly, my higher self will communicate to me through others. And same for you. Your higher self, if you're unable to see it yourself, if you're unable to directly connect to your higher self, because we all have subconscious blocks and traumas from our past, what's going to happen is that your higher self will communicate to you through me. So your higher self will reflect to you things. So this will be your higher self speaking to you. And this will be my higher self speaking to me. So essentially, we're just talking to ourselves.